Do you see it around the country? Do you see the OEMs treating dealers differently? I know legally they're not supposed to, but.
Yeah, I absolutely see it. It's amazing some of the things that some of these manufacturers have gotten away with. And a lot of it, when we got through COVID, all of them swore that they weren't going to overproduce and there was going to be, just in time inventory, and they were going to overproduce one less than demand, which that went away real quick. And it's become a race to the bottom. And a lot of these manufacturers are still trying to force product. And it's a tough struggle for some dealers.
This is a show for anybody that has something that they want to say. It's going to be full of people with a lot of energy, CEOs, OEMs, vendors.
Best practice ideas in this industry and of neighboring industries.
We're talking to people that are on the cutting edge of processes, management.
Serial entrepreneurs, authors. We really have a feast of all different types of senior level people.
A cornucopia, as it were.
A plethora, maybe. Grab a pen, grab a cup of coffee, and have a seat. Start writing. This is GarageCast.
GarageCast. Welcome to GarageCast. Let's see. Scorecards. Very interesting, man. I hope that grows legs from last week talking to Matt and Jeff about scorecards. That was super cool.
That was really cool how they got into the position of having OEMs rank dealers and dealers rank OEMs in a setting that's not throw a grenade into the room and run away. Sitting at the table having that conversation together was a really good chat.
Yeah, very interesting. Where do I find you in the world? You're at home, yeah?
I am at home. Yeah, I'm right about to not be at home, but for right now, I'm here for one more day.
Yeah, you're heading to, if we're going to talk right now about what you're going to be doing in the future, and we're bringing it all right back to real time. You just got back from Dusseldorf, didn't you?
I just got back. Yes. I'm about to leave and I just got back simultaneously, depending on when this podcast airs.
Yeah, exactly. You just got back from Dusseldorf. That's going to be very interesting to hear about. But anyway, we're not talking about Germany right now. We're talking about Greg Mackey. Greg Mackey, he's the owner-operator of Cycles of Jacksonville and Interstate Cycles. You and I have known Mackey since all three of us were had more hair and were skinnier. All of us. I think you've always been skinny, Dancer, but at least Mackey and I, we've known each other a long time. Yes.
Very long time. And I think I may have found a few pounds there.
Who doesn't? We've all found our problems, Mackey. Hey man, thanks for coming on. It's been a long time and it's super cool to have you on the episode.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me and having a chance to chat today.
Yeah, for sure. So listen, man, your name for everybody that's in the industry and power sports, everybody knows Greg Mackey. Your name's synonymous with being in this industry for a long, long time. So for anybody out there that may not know who you are, tell us your background, Mackey. How'd you get into power sports? Where'd you start? I know you went to Florida State, which means that, like Dancer, you're not a smart guy, just a lucky dude. Look at Dancer over there, just all happy.
I'm over here doing tomahawk chop. You can't see it.
Yeah. No, Mackey, tell everybody your history.
Okay, yeah, we can go way back here. My grandfather was really instrumental. He started the Florida Motorcycle Dealers Association. He had an Indian dealership back in the 40s when Indian was still Indian. He started Florida Cycle Supply after Indian went belly up and ended up selling that to Mr. Ed Tucker. So he was a very busy guy and instrumental in me growing up in a dealership. And then from there, obviously to Florida State, it's 3-1 girls there. So I feel like I am pretty smart. I went to the best
One of
odds.
your finest decisions, Mackey.
That's right.
Was that a top tier decision? Meaning you were looking for the highest ratio men to women? Were you looking for the football team? Were you looking to just get into anywhere? What was it?
Really anywhere, but ultimately, the odds there. I grew up a Seminole fan, and it was. I don't think I could get in now with the qualifications as high as they are. Certainly, school has changed quite a bit, but. I got out of Florida State and then immediately went to work at Cycles of Jacksonville. in a family business, and I cut my teeth for about the first 4 years. We had a semi, and we did all the motorcycle rallies across the country. And that was a very intense operation. We would typically leave on a Monday, Tuesday. We set up on Wednesday, sail Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, break down Monday, and then head to the next motorcycle rally. So lots of repeat, lots of trials and tribulations out on the road. I probably had at least a half dozen employees call it quits while we were on the road and found their own ride home. So that was interesting, but it was a lot of fun. And it certainly was like drinking out of a fire hose. And then I was fortunate enough to get involved with the 20 clubs. I think I was in the first class of the general manager's school.
That's right.
So learned a lot from Mr. Ed Lemko. And boy, that was, I can remember going into my first 20 club meetings in my 20s, and that was a very intimidating situation. There was a lot of good operators in that room, and I was fortunate enough to learn from a lot of those guys.
Pretty sure you're still in the same group that you started with. I mean, the groups changed, but that whole Garage One foundation, maybe it was G2. I'm not sure which one you were in.
Yeah, it was G1. It was G1. You know, we kind of moved around a little bit when Triumph was doing the co-op thing.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, ended up back in G1, and it's a really good room to be in.
That's great. Are you originally from the Jacksonville area?
Lake City. I grew up in Lake City. But yeah, it's about 70 miles from Jacksonville. So this is my home.
Got it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, for the listener out there, I wanted to get Mackey on. He's the first guy I thought about when we looked at some results from some feedback we were getting on the podcast about multi-rooftop operators, that we tend to interview a lot of multi-rooftop operators. And we do, because with people who want to buy new dealerships and rooftops, like what are the challenges that come with those? But some of the comments were, we would really like to see more people who have 1 and 2 rooftops who are doing a really good job through this climate. And immediately I thought about Greg Mackey. So I'm sure we're going to get into that, but let's rewind the clock here, Greg. 2009 and pre-2009, you were in that ambitious let's grab up another store at the time, yeah?
We were. We had one store, and then an Open Point became available in Lake City, which obviously piqued my interest because that's where I was born and raised. So I jumped on that, and then the opportunity.
That piqued your interest because it's halfway between Jacksonville and Florida State. It was a bailout if you needed it for any reason. Let's be honest.
Well, that is true, but it didn't pique my interest near as much as when the Tallahassee store became available, because that gave me an excuse to have fun on the weekends, but yet be working
expenses.
as well.
Business expenses.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Sorry, I interrupted. Please continue.
Yeah. Okay, so Tallahassee, then keep going.
Yep. So we added a couple more stores in Georgia. We had Savannah and Tifton, and over in the Fort Walton, Destin area. And we were in go mode. And then, the bottom hit in 2008, and things changed rapidly. I think the industry lost half its rooftops or a little more. And we certainly were not immune to that at all. So we sold off a couple stores and put a key in a couple others and just shut them down, and got back to a manageable size.
But so before we go backwards, before we regress from the great collapse, that 7,500 dealers went down to 4,000 in the power sport industry. It was more than half in the boating industry, but it was not a fun time for a lot of people. But I just wonder about your growth curve. Let's just talk about that for a second, because it's reflective of where you are right now with the 2 rooftops you have right now. But let's just go back. You talk about Tifton, and then you talk about Savannah, and those are 2 totally different demographics. You talk about Lake City and Jacksonville, 2 totally different demographics, right? And then Fort Walton Beach and Tallahassee. I mean, you're all over the board. So what were you looking for when you were acquiring stores? What was the criteria other than something for sale that you could drive to?
Really, there was no plan. It all just kind of fell into place. And when the opportunities came up, and at that time, I was very fortunate that when I left Florida State, the motorcycle industry was just going on a tear. Boom. Really, from the early 90s till 2008, there was opportunities. There was a lot of growth, and of course, that made me think I was really smart. But really I was just a product of the industry, which I found that out in 2008 as well. So there was there was a lot of fun, and I think on our biggest year we were doing about $80 million in sales, and it's unfortunately I don't think there was a real set plan. It just as the opportunities popped up, we took them.
Yeah, and you got up to 8. Oh.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of people were doing that. That was everybody was watching what Ride Now was doing at the moment, and then you had the APSs of the world, and you just had everybody that was in growth mode, and nobody was expecting that that downturn like it hit, and it hit hard, and it decimated a lot of people. So for sure. And Sam, you were going to ask him what now?
Yeah, I was just saying, so as you said, you shut some of those stores down, you had to turn a key in a couple of them, you sold some of them. You kept a couple around. Yeah. So we're at 2 now.
Yep. We're at 2, our Jacksonville and our Lake City store, in that original G1 group, like you said, everybody was in growth mode, and Ride Now was in that group. So we were just kind of following along what everybody else was doing and acquiring stores to keep the growth going.
Mm-hmm.
So some lessons that maybe you could pass along, either from the strategy, or maybe having a strategy on the growth plan, or when you have to go backwards for whatever reason, choice, or because you have to, because of the economy, any lessons you could pass along as to kind of how to scale that back down if need be?
Yeah, well, I would think on the growth, what we saw, and I think this holds true for a lot of dealers, the further your tentacles get out and can't touch personally everything, your processes better be in place. And one mistake we made, and that certainly we kind of refocused on, is making sure that we grow what we had in front of us before we go out and look for other opportunities. Because we're kind of in that situation now. We're looking around and seeing what's out there, but we've also been fortunate enough to add some new OEMs to our current locations, and making sure we've got that wrapped up tight. And, it was a very expensive education. It was certainly more expensive than what I paid at Florida State. We were hanging on, and we were able to save it. My dad, Skip Aldis, who's been one of my mentors, he was a fighter pilot, and he said, we're running out of altitude and airspeed real quick. We got to figure this thing out. So luckily we were able to do that. And, one of the things we took away from it was we were over leveraged. And so we took a step back, and when we started to rebuild this thing, we've just kind of taken a different approach than a lot of other dealers. And we are a cash dealer now. We own all of our inventory. We own our buildings because I don't want to say we're recession proof, but we're certainly a lot better off than we were back in 2008.
Man, I liked a few of the things that you just said there. Number one, and I'll tell you, Greg, I see this all the damn time. And what you said is really profound, which is, man, don't go looking to buy stores if you have not maximized the opportunity in your 4 walls right now, right? I see a lot of dealers that they're just they just want to say that they're 2 or 4 or I have 5, and they don't have the right personnel. Their growth curve is like astronomically hockey sticking up. They all of a sudden find themselves in another point that you made, which is just leverage to the hilt, right? And so I love the conservative mindset of, I'll go out and look around at some stuff, but I'm going to make sure that the 2 places that I have right now are churning, they're process driven. Like you said, another thing, tentacles, like the farther out you get and the more that you're doing stuff with a phone call or a webinar, that just gets super dangerous. So those are all really good things that you said. So let's talk about the leverage with the OEMs back then versus now. You had 8 or 9 stores. What was the number?
We had 8. We had 8. Yeah.
You had eight stores. Were you treated differently as opposed to now with 2 by the manufacturers?
There's certainly a different dynamic there when you start to see the size, especially with some of the smaller OEMs. I mean, we were delivering more motorcycles than some of the manufacturers were on a yearly basis. But fortunately for us, we're in Florida. We have great franchise laws, so there's still a lot of leverage on the dealer side, which is fortunate for us. And I think Texas is the same way. That we're able to grab that by the horns a little better than some dealers in other states.
Got it.
Do you see it around the country? Do you see the OEMs treating dealers differently? I know legally they're not supposed to, but
yeah, I absolutely see it, it's amazing some of the things that some of these manufacturers have gotten away with, and a lot of it, when we got through COVID, all of them swore that they weren't going to overproduce, and there was going to be just-in-time inventory, and they were going to overproduce one less than demand, which that went away real quick. And it's become a race to the bottom. And a lot of these manufacturers are still trying to force product, and it's a tough struggle for some dealers.
Let's push the OEM conversation a little further down. I'm interested. Tony, we started this whole conversation about last week's podcast and with the scorecards, and so I'm kind of interested in Greg's philosophy on scorecards. You sit here and you think about OEMs and dealers that either take advantage of certain situations or they get treated differently because of their buying capacity or whatever it happens to be, right? And we were just talking with Jeff Strong and Matt Gruen from MRAA, and they were in the marine industry. They're rolling out a program of quantifiable scorecards, holding the dealers accountable from the OEM perspective and holding the OEMs accountable from the dealer's perspective. And when they're not in alignment, they get together and they have conversations about how to make it better. And their ultimate goal is to enhance the customer experience, right? That would obviously drive profitability. That would drive raving fans from the customer base. So do you think that's a reality? Does that pique your interest? Do you think we could roll that out in power sports, or, is that a pipe dream?
Well, I really like the concept. I love the idea. I don't see it happening in the power sports business. It's always seemed to be a bit of a headbutting situation, especially when it comes to big orders. And I think some of the manufacturers would just rather do away with dealers altogether and go sell direct to the public. So there's certain, we've been in litigation with multiple manufacturers on different situations. And unfortunately, a lot of them there's pricing differences on ordering. There's rebates tied that if you don't hit certain targets, which can put you behind the eight ball. I just think there needs to be more of a level playing field on some of the smaller dealers in states that aren't as good as Florida on the franchise laws. They're in a tough spot.
Yeah. What brands do you sell between the two stores?
So at our Jacksonville store, we've got Honda, the Piaggio Group, Triumph, and we just added Segway and Donago. Okay. And at our Lake City store, we've got Honda, Yamaha, just added CF Moto. We added KO as well during COVID, and Hammerhead go-karts.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right. Got it.
I was wondering I won't say what I was just about to say.
Lovely.
As you rattled off those brands, I had a comment, but I'm going to hold that thing down.
Yeah. So those two stores, you have two well-run stores in completely different areas of Florida, different buyers, different markets. So what's the difference between those stores relative to systems? Closing on payments? Is there staffing differences, advertising? Talk to me about the differences between those two stores.
Well, certainly the processes are the same. But in our Lake City location, it's a smaller market where we do a lot of more grassroots advertising and marketing. We're involved in the Little League baseball games and the Chamber of Commerce events they put on, and that stuff in the small community counts. But they are 80% of their business is side by sides. And growing up as a Honda guy, Honda was late to the game on that. And it took me a long time to get my head around it. But now I'm in love with it. That's my passion. But in our Lake City store, like I said, it's 80% of the business. Their average ticket is actually higher than our Jacksonville location, just because of the amount of the dollars on the side-by-side business.
Huh. Interesting. And then the demographic in Jax is different, obviously European product, Honda product. So a little bit, what's the demographic like there?
Yeah. I mean, we're Metro Jacksonville, we're downtown. And when I started, we were a motorcycle dealer, and I never thought we'd have to see the day where we have to put roll-up doors in to get the product in, just to push in and out every day. I can remember if you came in looking for an ATV, we're like, yeah, there's some in the back. Let us know if you see one you like, because we were selling CBR 1000s and Gold Wings and VT 750s and VTX 1300s like there was no tomorrow. It took me a while personally to get my head around the UTV business, but it's, like I said, it's driven the numbers. And it makes up about 26% of our business in our Jacksonville location.
Yeah, you said it took you a long time to get behind that because, you like you said, you weren't carrying Polaris, you're not carrying Can-Am, the two big ones. You just started it carrying CF Moto. You said you really got involved in it. It's your passion now. Are you talking like mudding, getting out into these parks and doing the whole thing? What are you doing?
Yeah, I'm a Windrock guy. We go to Tennessee quite a bit to hit that park. It's very rocky and technical, and I try to stay out of the mud as much as I can, but we enjoy it. It's social activity, and and a lot of that we can pass on that enthusiasm to our customers. It's a lot of it's family trips, and sometimes there's 30, 40 of us in a group, and it's just become. And it's going to that Windrock Park the first time. It kind of really blew my mind of how much money was in that segment. Everybody was pulling in with a F-350 with a car hauler with 5 or 6 UTVs on them that, were $50,000 a piece. And it was a real eye opener. And once that happened for me, and then I got behind it, and we really started to make some inroads with those customers. You
cruising on a Talon? You on a CF Moto? You in a Segway? What are you riding? All of them.
I'm cruising on the Talon, man. I'm a Honda guy.
Yeah.
I do have a second R-Max. That's a 4-seater. So we want to take the daughter. She's got a place to sit. So when we go in the summer, she's out of school, but we get her on the R-Max.
That's awesome. That's cool.
Yeah. Go ahead, Tony.
No, go ahead.
Now I'm sitting here just piecing together some of the stuff you were talking about. And, we started this thing off about being a well-run 1 or 2 rooftop dealer. And what I hear from you, and we hear from a lot of our boat dealers, and what I just heard from you in your personal life, is you're very much involved in the community. You're up at Windrock. You said there's a whole community, and you guys go up 40 at a time, whatever it happens to be. You look at the boating industry, and they go out to, and you're well versed in boating too, Mackey. You go out to a sandbar, you tie all the boats together, and you might have an adult beverage or two, maybe. But
maybe when we had that store in Destin, that was not a horrible place to be during the summer.
No, that was not a horrible place.
Bring a lot of fun.
Yeah, safe fun. We drink when we get back to shore.
Absolutely.
And I just sit there and I think about how so many of the high volume dealers that are out there are just turning inventory. They're not taking the product and going out on the weekends with 40 of their closest friends or families or whatever that happens to be, and really living the product. And I'm generalizing, but that is very true, particularly a lot of automotive based power sport dealers. They're just turning the products. They're not necessarily involved in the community. They have a nice building, a nice facility, but you're in a group with a lot of high volume guys. And I would suggest, fair statement, would you agree that national average volume wise is probably where you play?
As far as what our group is,
your stores play at the round the national.
Our volume wise, we're smaller. We're certainly some of the smaller groups and guys in the group.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've been fortunate enough to sit in with a lot of smart guys, and one of the things that I didn't coin this phrase, I think it was Morris Baker, that there's just pockets of profitability. So whether it's 50 units, 100 units, if you're staffed right, and you've got processes in place, in order to move the needle to go from 100 units to 150 units, obviously you've got additional staffing you bring on, different layers of management to bring on. When we had 8 locations, we had a standalone building just for our accounting team. So I think as we've stepped back, and I'm extremely happy with the 2 stores we have now, and being able to really dive in and really drive the numbers and, stay around that 11, 12% profitability mark. It's a fun thing to do. And as you grow, it's certainly harder to do.
Yeah, no joke there. I guess what I was getting to ultimately was we have a lot of dealers who are, well, what group are you going to put me in? Well, I want to be with people who are in my state, in my demographic, of my like-minded product line, of my like-minded volume line. But here you are with, with inventory that's considerably less than some of the people in the room, but you're adding value, taking value away. Talk to us about being a smaller player in a larger high volume group and kind of the value that you can get both directions with that group.
Well, certainly those higher volume guys have some processes, and especially for me on the fixed op side, moving around in Google Docs and how that, those repair orders move through the system, how the customer interaction is. There's certainly some processes there that they've taught me. And I think is what we're able to give is really keeping a tight rein on expenses and controls and making sure that we're driving that, that per unit sold profitability. Because like you said, a lot of those guys are turning product and a lot of them have to. They've taken on all this inventory and they're kind of in the situation we're at. And we've decided to play a little more conservative ball, but on that conservative side, you can still be very, very profitable.
Right on.
For sure. What do you believe is the segment in power sports that nobody is capitalizing on, Mackey?
Yeah, I think everybody thinks the sport bike business is dead, but it's not dead. It's a price point issue. So I think the pre-owned sport bike market is scalding hot. And certainly you can play in that business. I don't think there's a lot of guys doing it. But that is one segment that has certainly on the new sales side slowed off. But it's those people are still very much customers and they're out there. But it has definitely become more of a pricing issue because you look at some of these new sport bikes are $30,000. And a lot of these, we're in a military town, and so that kid that's an E3 is not going to be able to afford that payment on that $30,000 bike, but he can certainly swing one on a $10,000 sport bike. I think that's a little pocket right now that's hot.
I couldn't agree with you more, especially when you talk about some of the new product that's hitting the floor, like CF Moto, and some of their sport bikes are just fantastic, and they're at a price point that I think your audience can play.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything in that $10,000 and under mark is just where it's at right now. And even with the Aprilia, the RS 447, there's some fun motorcycles out there that are reasonably priced.
Now you had mentioned hang on one sec, Tony. You had mentioned playing in the pre-owned space and the pre-owned sport bike space. And once upon a time, when people wanted to know how to find pre-owned bikes, there was one Greg Mackey who said, I just put cash in a driver's hand and said, go get it, because cash talks when you're buying from the public. Do you still have somebody like that, or do you still have that same philosophy?
We do. We scour Facebook Marketplace. We obviously still hit the auctions pretty hard, but we found there's better value deals, obviously from private sales, typically cleaner units. Because the best inspections at auction aren't always on point, but we do have dedicated buyers with a suitcase full of cash that go around and buy bikes for us.
That's awesome. Yeah. I was going to go back to a question I was going to ask you, Mackey, which was the CF Moto. Are you focusing on their off-road, or are you taking the on-road stuff as well? That you just recently took them on.
So we took the full line, but that was at our Lake City store. So I'm sure we'll see a much larger segment with their side-by-sides and ATV lineup.
Got it. Cool.
I noticed you forgot one major OEM at your Jacksonville store. Has a 1972 BMW Boxer. There we go.
The big volume.
You're still selling Ural, huh?
We are.
Yes.
Yeah, that's an amazing story too. And I don't know if you're aware of this. When the war in Ukraine started, nobody would do business with them because they were in Russia, and they disassembled their factory and reassembled it in Kazakhstan, and were up and running in 90 days, which I thought was pretty darn impressive. So that they're fun. I know, Sam, I know you enjoy yours, and I certainly enjoy tooling around at the beach on summer days on ours as well.
Those things are so fun. Those little 3-wheelers. I'm just looking it up right now. You got 3 in stock. I'm going to have to do a little homework. Hey, let me ask you, because let's talk about OEMs. You mentioned that earlier. I said we're going to push it till the end. At least on paper, you've at least in the stock market, right? You've got some big hits from some big players that are out there. KTM certainly taken a hit as of late, a very public hit. Harley Davidson's been all over the board since summer. Polaris stock is seems to be in the tank right now. What are your thoughts, on those brands, and is this a hiccup that they come back from, and then what does that do to the industry? And I'm just going to preface it with, we came off the election, consumer sentiment is high, interest rates are coming down, although maybe not where we want them to be. It seems like we got some tailwinds coming our way, but then you look at what's happening with some of the major players that are out there, and it's like it's a toss-up. What are your thoughts there?
And it's really surprising coming out of COVID. Everybody should have been lean and mean and had some cash in the coffers to go. I don't know what the situation is at KTM or how they got there, but it's surprising to me. I think Harley it's in a tough spot. I think their customers dying off. I don't know what they're doing to attract new buyers, younger buyers to their product. And I think long term that could be an issue. Obviously, they're still a very profitable company. But I think they've got some forecasting to do. As far as KTM, it's shocking, and I think that if we get, the slightest little hiccup or down, there's going to be some people in trouble again, big trouble.
What do you think about Polaris? I mean, that's a big brand that's taken a hit.
They are, again, they've gotten themselves in a situation where they overproduced, and I think they're making the dealers take the brunt of that. Lack of forecasting. It's like I said, if there's a downturn again, I think we're going to see some pretty big fallout. I think that might be a trend that's on the horizon.
Yeah, you're a relatively outspoken guy, Mackey. What would, and you talked about how you'll take the manufacturer on nose to nose when you need to. What do you think that manufacturers need to know or do better?
I think they need to let the dealers be in charge of ordering and forecasting and really, understanding their market. There's always just been this headbutting situation with the manufacturers because I feel like they think they can do it better than most of the dealers. And I just don't think that's true. I think the local dealers knows his local market and what he can move profitably. And I think when you get in these situations where products constantly being shoved down dealers' throats, it's not good for the industry. It's not good for the customer. It's not good for the OEM, and it's not good for the dealer.
So we're sitting here. We're 1 week at the time of this recording. We're not too far away from our Garage One meeting here, Mackey. What are your thoughts coming out of that meeting? You think people are going to be riding high, hunkered down, expense control minded? What do you think is going to happen here?
I think expense control minded. We're like I said, when we rebuilt this thing, we rebuilt a little different, and we're in a situation now where we're looking at 14 to 15% growth this year for 25. And I think there's some dealers in that position. I think there's some dealers that are still very over inventoried, and like you said, just moving through product to drive those flooring costs down. So I think there's a mixed bag out there, but I think the good players that are in a position to do well are going to have a good year in 2025.
Nice. Good. I hope you're right. I'm excited.
Yeah, I am too. Like I said, I think there's growth opportunity out there, and I think we're going to see some of that this year.
That's good. Hey, do you see? Last question for me is: do you see in the future of power sports? Do you see continued growth of rooftops? Do you see a shrinking of rooftops and, the continuation of dealers like yourself that start to pick off a third and a fourth? You know what I mean? It seems like it went from 7,500 down to 4,000. We're in that year of 24 where things got a little wonky, especially in the Harley space where dealerships were going out of business like left and right once a week. Do you think that normalizes itself, or do you see more Greg Mackeys that are going to go pick off 3, 4, 5 stores or open and closing?
Well, I think you're going to see probably a leveling off of rooftops, and being able to bring more product in under one rooftop is certainly more profitable than having, smaller stores spread out. There's a big scale there between selling 50 units a month and 200 units a month. And when you start playing in that 200 units a month, arena, it's a lot more fun. That's for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Nice.
All right, buddy. Hey, anything you want to throw out there that we didn't get a chance to hit on?
No, I appreciate you guys having me and taking the time, and hopefully we'll see some growth for everybody in 2025.
Yeah, that's it,
right
man.
there with you, man. Appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, thanks. For Greg Mackey and Sam Dancer, this is Tony Gonzalez. This has been GarageCast. Have a fantastic Tuesday.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, guys.